Coming to paperback and e-readers, Isis Dark Incubus. The goddess next door gets enthralled in a romantic entanglement with an evil incubus in this all-new Isis series adventure. Pre-order your copy of Isis Dark Incubus at Amazon.com and other online booksellers everywhere. One of my viewers dropped a comment saying that he was an engineer. And even though he had an engineering degree and was working at an engineering company, the engineering company had him driving a truck. Now, this was a comment I could relate to because back in 1994, when I graduated college with a 3.95 grade point average and graduated at the top of my class, I thought I would be able to get an entry-level job at one of these corporations after graduating college. However, the only job I could get was back in 1996, working at a food emporium doing stock and bagging groceries. And this is what happens to many heterosexual black men who are educated and ready to be professionals. We don't wind up getting the full-time jobs in the jobs we're qualified for. No, oftentimes a lot of us wind up becoming underemployed, and we wind up becoming underemployed because, yes, we will find a job. However, that job will not be one that meets the qualifications of our education and our experience. And this is something that heterosexual black men have been dealing with ever since the days since the Civil War ended, because ever since the days that the Civil War ended, there have been efforts to try to undermine black men from being able to make a living based on their qualifications as related to their skills in this country. Now, because of the unwritten and written social rules of Jim Crow in the South and discrimination in the North, many heterosexual black men who had college degrees and professional backgrounds could not go out and get the jobs that they were qualified for. So a lot of brothers, because they couldn't get those jobs that they were qualified for, oftentimes had to take jobs that were available. And oftentimes the only jobs that were available for those brothers were usually jobs that other whites and non-blacks did not want, such as jobs that were dirty and dangerous, such as being in a mine, or jobs such as those of a butler or a servant in a hotel or a restaurant, or they would have to take jobs on the railroads as Pullman porters, and they would also have to go out here and take jobs as janitors. These were the jobs that were only available for heterosexual black men for an extended period of time in this country, and they were the only jobs available because most of those white and non-black men did not want those jobs because those jobs were dirty, those jobs were dangerous, and in some cases, those jobs were very degrading. And they didn't want those jobs because they wanted to have a respectable image, but a black man oftentimes had to take those jobs because he needed to find a way to feed his family. And you oftentimes on these jobs, you would see black men basically winding up having to bite their lip and swallow their pride because they wanted to be able to survive in this country. And those black men, as they were biting their lip and swallowing their pride, had to deal with being called an N-word, had to deal with being mocked and ridiculed, had to deal with people laughing at them. And this is all because these brothers just basically wanted to go out and make a living in this country. And what's sad about all of this is underemployment is that sadly nothing has really changed as related to heterosexual black men in this country. No, we still have to deal with this kind of discrimination, and we still are dealing with this kind of discrimination here in this country because a black man, who, if he goes out and tries to apply for one of these jobs, oftentimes runs into what I call the HR brick wall that has been erected by many of these feminists, non-blacks, and whites. And what they do is that if they even want to hire a black man, is participate in a passive-aggressive campaign to keep that black man from being able to be visible in these businesses, because while many of these companies will talk about diversity and inclusion, there is one person who you will always see excluded from all of the pictures of their company, and that is the heterosexual black man. And they'll sit there and try to say, oh, we couldn't find any qualified black men, but that's all bullshit. And it's bullshit because they just don't want to find a black man to be as part of the front facing part of their company, because having a heterosexual black man as the front facing part of that company, what that does is it makes many of these whites and non-blacks, and even some of these black bootlick males and black females, extremely uncomfortable. Because what these individuals want to do is have their smooth world, and in their smooth world, they don't want to see any heterosexual black men on the job, and they don't want to see a heterosexual black man on the job for a variety of reasons. Now, the first reason is having to do with many of these whites, non-blacks, and some of these black female and black male bootlicks wanting to have their smooth world where they don't have to deal with the conflicts, problems, or obstacles of having to deal with the presence of a heterosexual black man. Because for these individuals, the mere presence of a heterosexual black man actually represents actual competition, and that means they have to come out of that smooth world and that artificial environment where they believe that they are going to have everything, where they can get their goodies, giveaways, and freebies and maintain their level of mediocrity. Because if there's a heterosexual black man on that job, what that means is that they have to come out of their comfort zone and actually step up their game. And that makes many of the whites and non-blacks who are used to having their privilege be able to deal with an actual competitor, and they don't want to deal with a competitor because they don't really want to be able to have to actually do some real work. So what they do is they don't want to deal with that black man. So what they do is they bury that black man in places like the mailroom, or in maintenance, or in jobs like receiving, where they're working and packing boxes, where they're in the basement and in the background, or they're driving trucks. They're away from the business, and that makes them comfortable. And it also makes many of those non-blacks and the black bootlicks comfortable, because it makes these people comfortable because they can be the token model minority. And in the case of the black bootlick, they can be the age nice. Now, the bootlick really loves keeping other black men out of the workforce, because many of those black men and black women, they want to be the center of attention in that business for those white people at the top of that business, or those non-black people at the top. So they don't like the idea of the whole idea of another intelligent, articulate, and well-spoken black person disrupting their flow. Because a lot of these folks who are bootlicks, basically, they have gone out here and gotten these Ivy League degrees. They have been told that they're special. And when they see a brother like myself coming from a small local college and can speak on the same level and articulate the same words and go out here and basically see things from a more different critical perspective, this makes these folks extremely uncomfortable. And it makes them uncomfortable because they cannot go out here and believe that they are some sort of elite Negro and some sort of prominent Negro who is special. What a regular heterosexual brother with a college degree does is it makes those folks feel extremely uncomfortable about their so-called place at the top. And they have, when they see a black man like myself, what they get scared of is actually having to deal with real competition. And actually having to deal with real competition means that they just can't come in and say, oh, I'm this black person who came from this school and worked their way through this school being a bootlick and a clown. No, you got to deal with a real brother who is ready to go out here and present the realities of a heterosexual black man. Now, the other reason many of these folks don't really want heterosexual black men to be fully employed in positions they're qualified for is many of these guys also have to compete in the social marketplace. And because they have to compete in the social marketplace, they start to get real uncomfortable when they start seeing brothers like me coming on the job. It starts to make them uncomfortable because, one, I'm starting to have economic power on their level, and two, I'm starting to be somebody who is coming into the social marketplace and starting to show some sort of social value. And this is something many of the whites, non-blacks, and black bootlegs don't want to see, because if you start to see other heterosexual black men into the social marketplace, that means that that brother is an upwardly mobile brother, and that upwardly mobile brother, as he enters a social marketplace, can now start making economic choices to, one, empower black people, and two, go out here and, as they're in this social marketplace, start competing with these guys for the attention of all of the black women, because a lot of these black male bootlicks, they don't want to see a qualified heterosexual black man in the workforce, because they're used to being whoremonger males, and they're used to looking to go out here and smash and dash all of these women. And when they see a black man who is talking about building and building family, that's something that prevents them from being able to get a lot of the sexual access they're looking for as related to all of the women in the social marketplace. Because a lot of these bootlicks, basically, they love having the whole marketplace open to themselves, and as that, if that black man is underemployed, they can go out here and artificially present themselves as some sort of high status male, and present themselves as a high status male because they are going to go out here and promote themselves on their Ivy League college degree, promote themselves on their six-figure or high five-figure job, and they're going to be able to say, hey, all of these ladies, they are somebody, and this is something that they really want to keep in place, because the less men that are in the social marketplace and the business marketplace, the more opportunities for them to get sexual access, especially with white and non-black women, opens up. Now, that's another reason why they don't want to see heterosexual black men on the job in jobs that they're qualified for. A lot of these whites and non-blacks fear that if you see a heterosexual black man on the job, that these white women and non-black women are going to start lusting for that black man. And they are sitting there thinking, oh, that this black man, if he comes into the business marketplace and he starts making good money and he starts presenting himself in a professional manner, these guys know that because they're mediocre and they're just whack dudes, they know that they aren't going to be able to get those opportunities with all of those women in the workforce or even in the social marketplace. So what they do is, again, use discrimination to try to eliminate black male competition, and they use discrimination to eliminate qualified black male competition, because they want to be able to have their own little environment where they can have their world smooth, and in that smooth world feel safe about being able to have their pick of jobs, their pick of women, and be able to continue making money in that artificial environment. That's the main reason why you don't see a lot of heterosexual black men in a lot of jobs, even though they have college degrees, even though they have skills, even though they have the talent. You don't see that talent get a chance to actualize its potential in the American workforce and even other workforces, because many of these companies are run by people who don't want you to see heterosexual black men in any place other than the bottom of the company, again, working in those jobs, such as being the janitor, such as being in the mailroom, such as being in receiving, such as driving the truck. That brother could have the background of a guy who has a law degree. He could have a medical degree. He could have a business degree, but those companies don't want you to see that black man. No, they don't want you to see that black man in a front-facing position, because all they want is their smooth world where they can feel safe about being in an environment where they don't see an image of a black man basically representing direct competition to their already artificial environment of their economy. This is something I myself ran into later on in my career. I mean, in 2000, when I was working at Stripe, I ran into this with an Ivy League guy who took me to lunch and told me that I had no place in his company, and I had no place in that company because they had these educated black bootlicks at the top, and they didn't like the idea of a guy from a small college being able to do work on the same level of competence and even excellence. They didn't like that idea, and that's why they didn't want me for that job, even though I was doing great work there, and people had told me I've been doing great work there. And I also ran into this when I took a job at a receptionist at a law firm, and they just kept projecting things onto me saying, oh, you're not doing anything. Now, I'd only been there 2 weeks, and I hadn't been trained to do everything yet, but they were telling me, oh, you're not doing anything, you're being hostile on the phone, and basically upset because I'm talking to you the way I'm talking to you right now. I mean, upset because the real thing that made them upset was they had a black man in a front-facing position representing their company, and they didn't like the idea of a black man representing their company because the idea of a black man representing their company was a progressive idea. Now, even in the interview for that position, I knew something was wrong because during the interview for that position, they kept talking about hiring somebody else. But because my money was running low, I tried to take this position and make it work, but it just didn't work at all, and it wound up being one of the worst things that I ever did. And I ran into this also when I was working at City College of New York. I ran into the same type of thing. Again, these professors, they didn't like the idea of a black man in a front-facing position. No, they'll let a black woman be in that position if she's a mammy or a minstrel, but they won't let a black man be in that position because, again, they don't want that black man to be the face of anything. And because they don't want that black man to be the face of anything, they look for ways to get that black man out of that position, and they will use black female enforcers because those black females and those black males who are bootlicks, they want to be in those positions, but they're only in those positions because they basically fit what the white folks and the non-black folks want in their smooth world, in that they love having these bootlicks and tap dancing minstrels being in these positions because these positions are ones where they can passively say, oh, we hired a black person and this person is representing us as related to diversity, but a lot of times these people are ignorant or they're just plain stupid, and they want them there because it basically proves the white supremacist point. And this is why so many black men wind up becoming underemployed. They wind up becoming underemployed because a lot of these brothers, have the qualifications to do these jobs, but a lot of times these companies don't want to see a black man in that job, and they don't want to see a black man in that job because they don't want to have to deal with a real world of heterosexual black men who are qualified to do this work, and they don't want to deal with having to compete with those heterosexual black men. Moreover, they don't want to see that black man having economic power to have the ability to make choices to go out and build in his own community because they don't like guys like me, because guys like me will start talking about not moving out to the suburbs like many of the spellbound Negroes who want white acceptance. No, they don't want guys like me building in the black community, because when you build in the black community and you have a large quantity of black folks building in the black community, it creates an economy where the black dollar stays in the community, and that's something they don't want. No, they want black males and black females who are nothing but consumers out here chasing Air Jordan sneakers and big butt women, and that's the kind of black person they really want on these jobs. But if there are qualified brothers, what they will do is underemploy them, and that underemployment is another reason why many black Americans, especially foundational black Americans, need to stand for reparations. Because reparations is not only about paying back our ancestors for all of the labor that was stolen from them in slavery, it's also about paying all of us back for all of the income we lost as we were eliminated from competing in the U.S. economy. Many of us were out here, we had college degrees, but were forced to be underemployed in positions like our ancestors were, such as Pullman porters, janitors, working in mines, or working other degrading positions. And we had to deal with all of that abuse, and we had to deal with that abuse while we were not allowed to go out here and make the actual money we deserve to make. Moreover, many of us were out here being discriminated as related to trying to find jobs that we were qualified for, and that current and ongoing discrimination that goes on with the HR brick wall is something that black men need to be compensated for, because these were deliberate actions that were done with malice of forethought and with intent to destroy a black man's ability to make a living in this country. These were things that were deliberately done to undermine black competence, black excellence, and black people being able to make a living in this country. You'll have a lot of folks say, oh, this is a free country. Black people could go out here and get any job they want. No, we were denied that opportunity and still are being denied that opportunity, because even though I lost my job at City College in 2008 and I was on the civil service list, I could not find a replacement job due to the HR brick wall, and I was denied that because they didn't want to see a black man in an office assistant position for a civil service job. They just did not want to see heterosexual black men in those front-facing jobs, because in the eyes of those people in HR, they wanted to satisfy those professors by only hiring women, and they only wanted to hire women because they didn't want to deal with the presence of heterosexual black men. This is something that was done, and it continues to be done, that underemploys black men and keeps black men who are qualified from getting the jobs that they're supposed to get, and getting the jobs that they meet the actual qualifications for. This is something that nobody wants to talk about as related to black male employment, because a lot of brothers out there, they qualify for jobs, they've got the degrees, they've got the skills, but they can't get hired. And since they can't get hired, a lot of ththese brothers have to wind up taking jobs far below what they're supposed to get. And this is something that has gone on for over 100 years, and that's why we need reparations, to get a check cut for all of our labor that was denied, because there were able-bodied brothers like myself ready to go out here and work, but you can't get work if nobody hires you. And in a lot of cases, if you do get hired, you wind up getting put on jobs that are far below what you're supposed to be doing. And then you'll have some of these black women out here who say, oh, I can't find a good man. I can't find a man in a high-value position. Well, you can't find a man in a high-value position because racists go out of their way to deny that black man that job. And that's what flies over the heads of chicks like this. They don't understand that you're undermining the very black men who could have helped you. And they sit there and talk about, oh, I want this high-value man. Well, that brother could have been a high-value man had people invested in him the way they invested in many of these mediocre white and non-black guys. But they don't want to invest in those brothers, and that's why that brother is underemployed. That's why that brother, in a lot of cases, is working stock in a supermarket or working stock at a Target if he can get that job, or he's out here working as a maintenance janitor, or he's working security. A lot of times those brothers are working those jobs, not because they want to, but because they have to, and they have to work that job because it's all they can get. And that's what many people don't understand about the underemployment of black men. The underemployment of black men is open, ongoing discrimination that keeps many black men from being able to compete in the economy, and keeps many black men from being able to enter that economy unless they can have the capital to start their own business. Because a lot of times, the only way a qualified brother can go out here and make the living based on the skills that they actually have is if they are starting their own business. And even then, it's a struggle, because a lot of times folks don't want to support that business. No, what they want to say is, oh, that's a black man in a business, we don't have to support him. No, we want to go out here and support the white or the non-black person who basically is running a company that keeps that black man from making a living. And a lot of times, this is the only way a black man can actually actualize his potential. I mean, that's what I had to do when I started SJS Direct. I mean, it's the only thing I could do after losing that job in 2008 was start my own thing. And it's a struggle, and it's the only thing I've got, because again, You want to get these jobs. You want to go out here and make that living. You want to go out here and get that job and go out here and start making that money. But a lot of times when it comes to black men, the only places we can make money is in those jobs that people don't want themselves. And they'll sit there and say, oh, the migrants want these jobs and deserve these jobs. But no, black men would take those jobs if they could get them in a lot of cases. And a lot of times us brothers, we want them jobs like that, but a lot of times we get denied. And that's what's really frustrating about things. A lot of black men want to be employed. And if we do get that job, the minute we try to stay on that job, people trying to get us out. And that's where that underemployed brother becomes frustrated, because he's out here trying to be the best he can be, but he keeps running into resistance from white supremacy and their minions. And that is the most frustrating thing about this entire job market that people don't understand. And I could relate to that brother who was an engineer. I could relate to him because that's the struggle I'm dealing with right now. It's the struggle that we all went out here. We're told that we could go out here and everything was equal. We had an opportunity and that we would be judged on merit. But on the merits of everything, everybody doesn't want to bring the black man in because they fear black men, and what they fear really is black male competition. Now, if you want to learn how to identify workplace predators and be able to keep your job, you can pick up my book, Stop Simping in the Workplace, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find Stop Simping in the Workplace at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, Google Play, and Barnes & Noble. And if you want to pick up some of the books on the SJS Direct imprint and help me be able to stay in business, you can pick up the books in the ISIS series, the Steam series, the John Haynes series, the books in the Spinsterella trilogy, my black vampire novel, Eternal Night, or my black sorority novel, The Thetas, or you can also pick up my black business novel, Recipe for Success, or you can wait and pre-order the SJS Direct 2024 books, which are available for pre-order on Amazon.com right now. John Haynes' Illuminati, ISIS Dark Incubus, and Esteem Horror in the Hamptons, and that would really help me to be able to stay on the air and continue making more videos like this. Now, if you also want to support, you can also donate to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Coming to paperback and e-readers, John Haynes' Illuminati. The man who rules the world takes on the head of the global elite in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Pre-order your copy of John Haynes' Illuminati on Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Now available in paperback and e-readers, The Temptation of John Haynes. Give in to temptation and pick up this action-packed African-American paranormal romance. Get The Temptation of John Haynes in paperback and e-readers today. Now available for the first time in paperback. Stop Simping in the Workplace. Men, learn what you need to know in order to protect your job from workplace predators with Stop Simping in the Workplace. Available in paperback at online booksellers everywhere. Support black-owned and black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.